All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. All of us here at One City are delighted to have you. Whether you're a student, a teacher, a guidance counselor, or anyone in the community who is a supporter of students like we are, we're grateful to have you with us. Um, Couple of housekeeping items quickly before we start. Please keep your mics on mute throughout the presentation. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end, as well as using the chat. Just type your message in, and our founding director extraordinaire is out off screen monitoring that, and she will make sure that we get to as many questions as possible. And by way of intros, we have at the top of your screen our program assistant, Tanisha Noel. Give a little wave. Tanisha is our first and yet our best. She will be hard to ever uh, surpass, I'm quite sure. She's been doing a fantastic job. And more importantly for today's chat, she is a former recipient of the One City Scholarship. And in fact, she's a recipient of over $45,000 in scholarship funding over the course of her successful academic career. So tonight she'll be sharing her experience and her knowledge in terms of the application processes, not only for us at One City, but in general with the other scholarships and bursaries she's been successful with in and around her academics. And then you'll then later hear from Will, who is in your bottom right. Will is our founder, the founder of One City. He is a devoted and beloved teacher at Downsview Secondary School, and he'll tell you more about us and about applying to our scholarship in particular. As we go, we'll also endeavor to give you a little bit of information as it relates to what mentors look for, what you need to do in terms of securing references, how to basically put your best foot forward and make sure that everybody who's supporting you in this process has what they need to make sure that you shine. Tanisha, shall we start with you?
Yes, we can start.
Awesome. So clearly, you've been successful at securing scholarships. What would you say are some of the most important things students who are doing this for the first time need to know?
I would say one of the best things is apply, because a lot of times students don't apply because there's so much criteria, or there's like many steps to get into scholarship, such as like a reference or a video. But I think one of my best pieces of advice is don't take yourself out of the game before the game has even started, because there's over $20 million every single year that goes and claimed by scholarships, and you could be getting the $20 million or something of that sort. And I would say, in terms of scholarships, also start early. Like, for example, if you have a month to work on a scholarship, really take your time and work at it. And you could do things like, for example, looking at past recipients, what are their skill sets, morals, and values, and what led them to win. And also asking your peers around you, asking your teachers, your guidance counselors, helping them to help formulate ideas and also edit the scholarship.
Okay. And you mentioned your references. What sort of ideal time frame do you think any student should give their references, or what does a reference need to have in order to be able to do that for you?
I would say give your references about 2 weeks. And also, if your references don't have much idea about you, for example, if they're your teacher and they only know you in the academic sense, help them to give something to work with. For example, I would say coming up with a brag sheet, telling them about your different accomplishments in and outside of school, and also some things you're passionate about. So therefore, they're able to talk about you more than just a student, but as a person, like letting us see it more about you beyond the academia world.
Mhm. And I know you've talked before about sort of sharing the impact of what you've done and telling the story as opposed to just telling us what you've done. Can you speak a little bit more about that as well?
Could you repeat the question? Just cut out there for a second.
Sorry, yes. I know previously you've talked about, making sure that you present your story and the impact of what you've done, not just a list of things that you've done or achieved, but what that means, what the impact is into a community or things like that. How do you go about doing that?
Okay, I would say, like, I have a method of thinking about a problem, a action, a result. For example, a problem is something that you overcome. Like, for example, are you part of a marginalized community? Did you come from a single parent household? Was potentially there like any deaths in the family, incidents, that is a problem in itself. And then also the action, like what did you do to rectify yourself in the situation? Like what did you do to kind of heal? What did you do to overcome that barrier? And the result is like how did you come out of the situation being better? How did you help yourself, your community, or your peers around you? So I would say using those three together really helps because you got to see the beginning, the start, and the end of a story rather than just telling us you've done this, but really showcasing you as a person and what you had to go through. Because I think something that One City likes to highlight is overcoming adversities.
Agreed. Agreed. And in terms of financial need, which obviously the vast majority of us require, and that's part of the reason that we apply for scholarships, how do you approach that subject? How do you suggest that people sort of be transparent and not downplay their actual financial need?
Okay, when it comes to talking about financially, I know that's something that can be like a difficult and touchy topic, difficult and touchy subject to talk about. But I would say one of the things is be open, be honest, be vulnerable. Because, for example, like you not sharing that piece of you can lead to somebody else getting the scholarship. Because I think sharing about your vulnerability, like for example, did you come from a lower income household? Did you struggle with like homelessness or financial aid? Like you don't necessarily have to get into like the big details of it, but giving them something to work with, like showcasing how you had that struggle and everything.
Okay, awesome. Um, and then if we start to think about it in terms of the entire process of doing a scholarship application, what do you do sort of when you finish writing down the answers, you feel like you've captured everything that you want to say? What are the sort of final steps before you actually click submit?
Okay, the first thing I would do is get somebody who knows me to edit it because I think sometimes for me I feel like I'm a perfectionist. I feel like everything I write is amazing, which sometimes it is. But I think that having somebody else who knows me able to look at that can help me see like maybe some flaws, maybe where I could explain something better and like how I can do better. So I would say first getting somebody else to look at it because especially if you spend like so many hours working on the scholarship, you might not be able to see the blind spots, but somebody else will.
Yeah.
I would say also grammar. Use Grammarly. Grammarly is a free resource. You're able to see grammar because sometimes like you have these like little spelling mistakes, but like Grammarly or even like checking your grammar before submitting that, I think it's something as well because a lot of scholarships disqualify people because of that. And also, I would say like make sure you look at the scholarship with a friend, with like not just somebody else, but look at it yourself one more time. Like, is this a work I'm proud of? Am I proud to submit this? Am I content with the work? And ask yourself these questions.
Yeah. And as you say that, one thing that I often say is don't let perfection be the enemy of good or the enemy of submitting on time, right? So do the due diligence, make sure you've checked your spelling, make sure you've done all that, but also critical, because that can make or break you, is hand it in on time. In fact, as you will hear us encourage you this evening, hand it in early, submit early. Don't wait till the end of application season, because if anything goes wrong, then your entire application goes to waste. Um, and as I say that, I do also want to say that whether you're applying to our scholarship or to other scholarships, as you do this process, it will get easier. As you do this process, you will also amass a lot of details about your story, your perspective, your achievements that you can reuse in other applications. So keep that information handy for the next time. And then you have some material to start with that you can massage and do massage it and make it relevant and potent for the actual application that you're applying for, or the scholarship that you're applying for, rather. Um, one of the other things I thought we would just touch on was interviews. Some scholarships require interviews if you get to a second round or a second phase. Anything there, Tanisha, that you've experienced that you think is critical? Is it the same sort of basic things that would be applicable for a job interview? Is
Okay,
that how you prepare?
that's actually so funny. I've never had a scholarship interview except One City, and that was the first scholarship I won. And like I remember, like honestly, when once the One City interview, I felt unprepared. But I think I could have done what I would have done, even though I won the scholarship. I would think I think something I would do, it's similar to a job interview, like talking about yourself, talking about your story and everything. But I would say like one thing you might not do in a job interview is get vulnerable. I feel like for like one city in the community it's great, but like getting vulnerable about like the scholarship and your story. Because one of the amazing things about one city particularly is we want to know your story, which is why a video component is also asked for. Sorry, I was reading the comments, which is why a video component is also asked for, because a lot of times like you're reading papers, but like seeing a video, like you get to know somebody's personality, you get to know their essence, you get to know what makes them shine. And I think that's something that's so important. And in terms of interview tips, I would say is prepare. Practice with a friend, practice with your mom, your dad, your grandma. Practice before you do it, because confidence is key. And also, I would, what if you don't? Okay, I will answer the question after. Also, I would say preparation, and then also like really coming in with like a good headspace, like being confident when you enter the interview, knowing that okay, there's a possibility, there's a reason that they called me for an interview. Because I know a lot of times interviews make people so nervous, especially people who are more introverted. But recognizing they selected you for an interview for this reason and having confidence in yourself.
Good point. Yeah.
Is it possible to answer the question?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. Go ahead. The question
Okay.
is, you mentioned a brag sheet. What if you don't think you have a lot to brag about?
Honestly, I think some practice I think sometimes one of the things that we think about brand and we bragging about is like accolades and awards and a lot of times like those are great and everything. Those are important. But like I think a lot of times our soft skills, like for example, like talk about like how you're a kind person, how you like to volunteer, how you like to give back community. Even the things on like microscopic levels that we see them as, they make truly impact. So if you don't have a lot to brag about, talk about the impact and the impact that you want to make, the impact that you hope to make in the world.
Yeah, agreed. And having interviewed many, many people for positions and for volunteering and things like that, the soft skills and the things that make you you are the things that make me want to connect to you and have you around in our community, in our workspace, in our thing like that. So there's a lot of value in just talking about not only what you may have accomplished or what you think are objective sort of accolades that everybody brags about, but what makes you you and what would make you a good fit or why this is important to you, things like that, right?
I agree.
And as Will says, practice your handshake. Practice your handshake. I think I've many times I have been told that my handshake is a little on the extra firm side, but I'd rather that than it being sort of soft and floppy. So practice your handshake and practice making eye contact. It's difficult, but it's certainly a skill that's worth developing. Um, One last thing that I can think of, but feel free to jump in at any time throughout this, Tanisha, if you think of other things that you want to throw in. What do you typically think or do as it relates to follow up? Do you check in afterwards? Do you sort of wait a few days after the deadline? Any thoughts there?
Oh, I always check in because I always check like right after you submit your application. I always try to send an email, hey, I just want to confirm that you received my application because like I feel like sometimes like things might happen and also it also makes like looks like a good impression. You're concerned whether they got the scholarship. So maybe when they're looking at the actual applicants, they'll maybe remember your name. I would say definitely follow up, like maybe follow up when you submit the scholarship and then like give it maybe a month and then follow up like the status of your application because sometimes scholarships take like a while to look at, but I feel like usually like a month's time or if they don't have an expected deadline when to get back to you.
Okay.
And also with that being said, like in terms of feedback, I also think like even if you don't get the scholarship, I think something that people forget to do is get feedback after that. Because a lot of times these are organizations that review scholarships day in and day out. So they know what makes a good scholarship, what makes something stand out. And you could have used the advice that you're getting from that. Because like for example, rejection is just redirection. So you can use the feedback to apply for the scholarship in the upcoming year or apply for scholarships in general to improve yourself.
And many times, if you don't get it the first time, there's nothing stopping you from reapplying in future years, right? Depending on the scholarship, it may be available again in different times. Um, so that's a good point. Absolutely a good point. And I would add that because there are so many applicants for so many scholarships, bursaries, awards, you may not get a response right away. But if you ask for a 15-minute meeting in a few weeks, the people who are involved may have the time to do that for you and with you then, whereas maybe not right as it happens, but it's still worth it to ask. It's always, always worth it to ask. You never know what the answer will be. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Thank you,
Yeah,
Tanisha. Like I said, jump in anytime. But I'd love to hear a little bit from you, Will, of course. I think we all are waiting to hear a little bit from you in terms of who we are and what One City is and some of your tips as it relates to applying to our scholarships.
Great. Thanks so much, Nicole. Welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I've been around since the beginning, and we started with, as Tanisha said, we started with a problem. We were watching, as a teacher at Downsview for 20 years, I was watching students who had been surrounded by community at our high school, going off to post-secondary, and many reporting back that they felt quite isolated and alone. And so we started sort of trying to think about what it would be like to try and continue the support that the students experienced in high school in post-secondary. And so we have gradually kind of built up our model of what One City would be. And the point of it as well is that Toronto has experienced huge growth, huge success, but it hasn't had a chance to connect with everybody. And so we wanted to make sure that the city knew just what an amazing resource we had in our young people. And so part of us bringing the scholarship forward was to promote the fact that young people are our secret sauce. They are the people who are already building the city. Not even waiting for them to kind of graduate from post-secondary. They're already involved. You are already involved. You are already creating the city that is Toronto is going to evolve into. So we were very excited about that, getting that going, and we were able to give out our first scholarships in 2018, and slowly, with the help of many people, but particularly our previous executive director, Dan Spivak, we were able to move up to about 25 scholarships a year from the original 4. So, and it's available in all TDSB high schools. If you're a graduating student, you're more than welcome to apply. You have to be going to school, but in September. One of the things that as we were getting going, we understood that we're also trying to be more than just a check. We wanted to say to the people who were recipients, we've got your back. You know, we're a small organization, but if you need us, we are there. So we are offering a whole bunch of other programs in terms of mentoring, in terms of advice, in terms of sort of huddles to get together. So there's a kind of community that's being built out of One City. And so one of the things that I look for when I'm reading an application is authenticity, just real. That's what I want. I don't need perfection. What I need is real. The point here is everybody who is getting into post-secondary has experienced success. So it's not that, you know, if you've got a great marks and whatnot, great, awesome, that's going to help. But the point is that if you've done enough to get you into a program, then you're good. So that is our measure of success. And the fact of the matter is that this graduating out of high school is the end of one phase of your journey. And for many of you, that journey has not been smooth. For economic reasons, social reasons, immigration reasons, family reasons, identity reasons, it's crazy. Sort of all the things that young people today have had to go through and have had to go through. So we're saying, listen, show us. The thing that we want is your story about how how you got there. Like, here you are about to cross the graduation stage with your diploma. And the fact is that, you know, not every day was easy, but you found a way through. And we want to hear about that. If I could say just a quick thing about authenticity, obviously you've got the videos, and those are you, but oftentimes the temptation is with the written pieces is to allow, for example, AI to take over. When Tanisha was talking about Grammarly for recently earlier, that was a perfectly appropriate way of using AI. Listen, I've done all the work, I've written it, it's my voice, and now I'm asking Grammarly to help me with spelling, with maybe some phrasing and whatnot. But the point is that there are a temptation, especially in a busy life, you're trying to get a whole bunch of things taken care of, to just type in a prompt and get AI to write right back to you. Generally speaking, those applications are not successful because the AI has a generic voice. It does not have a you voice. And so we don't, and that's what gets read. This seems very far away. This does not feel like the real person. So what we're looking for very much is that idea of tell us who you are, and be confident about that, and tell us your journey, and you'll get an honest hearing. There's lots of people who read your application. It's not just one person. We have small teams that look at all the applications, and frankly, we are every single year we are just moved by what it is that young people are offering the city, and so we feel very fortunate to be for you to take the time to tell us your story. We feel honored by that, and your application will be considered with utmost respect. So that's my piece. I think I just wish you all good luck, and as people said, please apply, get it done. Get your references taken care of, and let's go. Let's get this thing done. The other piece of this is that what the application work that you do with us can often be tailored to other applications as well. So we understand that you're not just doing this work for one application. It may be relevant for many others as well. So thank you.
And actually, as you were speaking there, Will, I thought of a few things that maybe potential applicants don't really think about or have common misconceptions or mistakes that we see. So maybe I'll ask you both quickly to think of a couple that you want to make sure that we can clear up. But one of them that I've seen is that students assume that if they're not going to university in post-secondary, then they're not going to be worthy of a scholarship. And that's
No,
100% not the case. 100%
absolutely
not.
not.
We
Absolutely not.
actively
So the
encourage
post
both.
post-secondary education. So that means university, yes, of course. College, yes. Trades, yes. It doesn't matter. Like if you've got a post-secondary path of whatever kind, okay, you're good, right?
Let us know.
One thing I should note. One thing I should note is that our scholarship is not huge, and so we've made a decision not to be available for students who are going to have to pay international fees. Those are extraordinary, and our scholarship really won't help. And so if that is your situation, however, there are many people who may think, oh, I shouldn't apply because I'm not a Canadian citizen. That is not the criterion. If you are able to pay domestic fees in whatever way that the institution allows, then you're good. Okay, so just be mindful of that.
Absolutely. And then the other thing to sort of remember, whether you quote unquote win or not a scholarship, it's not a race, it's not a competition in the that sort of sense of the word, but it really is almost a lottery at some point. At some point in our selection process, we get down to everybody left on the table here deserves this, but there is a limited amount of funds, and don't take it personally. Don't think that it was something specific necessarily that you did or didn't do, but just remember that it often is almost as comparable to a lottery because there's just so much. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that we mentioned, and something that's different about us, is that as Will said, the scholarship funding is not huge, but it is over 2 years. So whereas most entrance scholarships and things of that nature are just for your first year of post-secondary, ours is $3,000 divided over your first and second year. So stay connected with us and talk with us, and come your second year, the second $1,500 will become available to you.
Just a couple of things. I just want to point out our colleague Lydia Ann Johnson's comment here is that when you are filling out the application, please remember any kind of community involvement. It's so important. Mentoring, working in a church or a temple or a mosque, all that kind of stuff is very, very well received, and it just demonstrates that you are connected to your community. So please keep that in mind. So I just wanted to, there's just one more point that I wanted to make, is that we made a deliberate decision to do it over 2 years. So $1,500 in 1 year, $1,500 in another year. You can think of that as 100 hours of minimum wage work that you do not have to do. And so what that does that do? That allows you to make sure that you can join a club, that you can go to office hours and you can go to your TA. One of the things that students report to us is that the biggest enemy of success at university and college, in whatever post-secondary you do, is isolation. If you do not have people who know your name, that can be a real problem. And so part of the reason for us to be doing this over 2 years is that we want to stay connected. And if you are feeling like you're having trouble connecting, then we have capacity to help you kind of connect with your post-secondary community. So just keep that in mind.
One other thing that Lydia Ann, who is a teacher at Emory CI, and who has also served as a mentor, as a reference, and is on our scholarship selection committee. One of the other things she wants to make sure that we all remember is that when you're choosing your reference, really work with them if you can. Help to start the reference letter and or let them know what the questions are in the application so that they can really speak to who you are and what your challenges are, whether they're financial or social or economic or whatever the case may be. If you have any mental health struggles that you're comfortable sharing, then try to pick a reference and again, give them enough time so they can do a great job, who can really speak to who you are and why you'd be a great fit. And lastly, on the topic of references, is that they can be reused. So ask your reference for permission to use it for other applications later on. It's a huge resource and a valuable one to have at the ready so that you don't have to keep chasing people down for every application. Any other mistakes or misconceptions that either of you can think of that you want to make sure we get in before we begin to wrap up and or take any more questions?
I think if I know many people live in very busy homes with lots of people around. One of the things that I would suggest is that if you can find a quiet place to record your videos, and you know, so that you're not disturbed, and that it's easy for us to hear. So just to keep that in mind.
Okay, awesome, perfect. Anything else? No? Okay,
No.
awesome. Well, I will thank everyone for joining us. I will say that if there are questions that you have for us that you haven't yet thought of and you think of later, we can be reached at any time via email. You can send us your questions at info@onecityfund.com or go on to our website, which is onecityfund.com, and check out our FAQ page, or the best place to go is to the application itself, which you can also find off of our website. We look forward to reading those applications, get them in, get them in, get them in, get them completed. Put your best foot forward, and we are looking forward to seeing you and hearing everything you have to tell us. Thank you so, so much, everyone. All right, everybody.